Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hello. I think I'll just give like a few more minutes in case anyone wants to join. Hi, David.
Hi there. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well.
Hi. So, yeah, let's. I guess I'll get started now. And if anyone else is joining, we won't get too far ahead. But yeah. Welcome. So we're meeting. This is like the Scorecards working group meeting. My name is Raghav. I work at Google on Scorecards. We don't have a super packed agenda today, so if there's like anything else that you feel that you'd want to add, please go ahead. But yeah, I'll be facilitating. If there's anyone new who's like your first time coming to a Scorecards meeting, yeah, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hey, my name's Teresa. It's my first scorecard meeting.
Welcome.
Thank you.
What organization are you from?
I work at Sonotype and been following your project for a while. And saw there was a meeting today, so I thought it might be a good time to like jump in. Also to note that the link to the document that is in the meeting minutes requires access.
I think if you just join the mailing list, it's automatic, but no, it's not. Okay. I might have the superpower to add you. Hold on, let me see. Ooh, I think I do. Do you mind saying your email address out loud, or is that?
Yeah,
It should be tied to the group.
How's this? Why don't you stick it in chat like you just did? Awesome. All right, so let me quickly add you. So I have now justified my existence.
Amazing. Thank you.
So anyway, welcome.
Yeah, I had the same problem.
Okay, do you still you're it's fixed now, right?
Did you get let's see. Double click it. Not for me, it's not fixed yet.
Okay, how's this? You post your email address in the chat. I will solve the problem.
All right. Yeah. Join group. Okay, that looks like it's a different group from the one that was in the my email address is in the chat. Okay, yeah, that group.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Is that group is a different one than was in the
okay. I don't know why, but let's get you added first, and then we will have we do need to fix up larger problems, but let's get
the group that Spencer shared was the functional one.
Okay, and you're also at Sonatype, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Saw the presentation last week. I didn't actually realize until you guys presented in Tahoe. I didn't realize that there was a community meeting for Scorecard. So I've actually got a couple commits on Scorecard without ever even realizing that there's a community.
Awesome. Welcome.
Right.
And thank you. I do want to, since you're here, a quick thank you to Sonatype, who did some really, really interesting analysis this year that's showing, the utility of some of these metrics and just, and their predictive power for at least known vulnerabilities. And I thought it was really awesome to see that kind of analysis. So thank you.
Yeah. The Scorecard got a huge shout out in our research paper this year.
Yeah, Brian just posted plus 1,000. Yeah. So frankly, a lot of the work happens with issues and pull requests and so on, as you can already see. So but okay. So who's our lead? I'm not actually leading this meeting. Who's leading our meeting today?
I'm facilitating.
I'm sorry.
I'm that's me.
Lauren. Okay. There you
go.
Who
did we hijack from?
It's Laurent.
Sorry, what?
Actually put that. Isn't that? Wait, I asked who's leading the meeting. Did I get it wrong?
Oh,
I think Raghav was talking.
No, it's Raghav. Raghav is the leader.
Raghav. Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
I'm gonna mark you as the leading meeting, so we know. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't see a bunch of project or individual updates. So yeah, I can go onto the agenda and feel free to add things over the duration of the meeting if anything comes up. But yeah, the issue that I wanted to talk about is handling code review for automated or bot generated commits on a project. So there are a couple of issues that have been opened around how we score code review for commits. And just to give a context, the code review check today looks at GitHub PRs and whether a GitHub for any commit in the kind of default branch of the project. We check for GitHub PRs that have been opened corresponding to that, and whether the PR was closed or merged by someone other than the person who opened it. So there, however, we don't have a great story around how we handle commits generated by bots. So an example of a bot is renovate or depend a bot, but people also use bots for other things. They use bots that do backports or automated if there's a regression or a bug, they'll automatically back out a commit. So it's a wide variety of bots, and the scoring can be inconsistent. Sometimes bots are given direct commit access to a repo, so they will be in kind of they'll show up in the commit history as there's a bunch of verified commits from a bot. Spencer, Laurent, and I talked a little bit about this offline, and there's kind of like a proposal that want to get people's thoughts on. Today we kind of look at the last 30 commits, and out of those commits we'll see how many distinct change sets there are, meaning how many of those commits belong to some reviewable activity, like a PR. And we'll give a proportional score. So if a change is reviewed or not, we'll proportionally give 7 out of 10 if 21 out of 30 of those commits are reviewed. But our proposal is to move this more proportional. So if there's any presence at all of bot commits that are unreviewed, we would just subtract a flat -3. And if there's any human commits that are unreviewed, we would subtract a -7 for that. Yeah.
So I have a, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I wanted to give a little bit more context because I think there's an issue that people from Sonotype actually reported at the Tahoe meeting. And I think that's the broader context for this problem, which is if you look at a repository, which let's say is a single maintainer repository, if Scorecard only catches pull requests that are from either bots or external contributors, all of those are going to be reviewed because unless you have enabled auto merge on Dependabot, but most of the time people still click, and external contributors also are always going to have an implicit review, whether it's an LGTM explicit or it's just you merge and you're a different person. So that kind of leads to false positive because all the single maintainer repositories will be seen as having code reviews, even though it's not exactly true. And I think that's not in the spirit of this talk, of this check. This check is more I wouldn't say insider attacks, but it's more is there a community that and they review each other's pull requests? So as part of this, there's, I think, the problem that Raghav brought up, which is bots. Can we basically say bots, Dependabot PR or RenovateBot PRs, we consider them less risky maybe, and we don't score the same way, even if they are reviewed or not reviewed? And can we also differentiate humans? And ideally between humans, we would differentiate between external contributors and maintainers, although we don't think that's easily possible because there's no GitHub API. So unless we do some inference where we look at who merge commits and then we say, okay, those are maintainers, and then we query again GitHub APIs, or some convoluted process, we think, I don't think we can tackle everything in one go, but that's the broader problem. I'm sorry, David, I cut you off, but I wanted to give the
yeah, just to summarize, the thing that we were talking about in Tahoe, I think Brian talked to you, was that there is a user who came to us and was like, hey, why does my scorecard score keep going down? And we looked at it, and we saw that he was being penalized for not having any code reviews, right? He was just merging directly to main, and occasionally his score would jump up because a Dependabot would make a PR, he would review it, he'd merge in, and his score never should go up because he's still just a single person committing directly to main. So Dependabot shouldn't buffer his score in the way that it had been. So that was the context.
Right. And I think something else that Raghav also and Spencer mentioned is that when we it's basically the fact that it's going up and down, and there's this instability of the check, and we don't know if we can really tackle this all in one go unless we look at more pull requests or a longer history. But yeah, anyway, yeah, you're absolutely right. Thanks for bringing that up. I'll let other people talk. Sorry.
Yeah, so I have a potentially different view that doesn't make it better, just potentially different. Because I think this is actually an interesting conversation, and clearly we need to think this through. And I'm expecting there'll be some change here because I think you're right. It does seem a little odd what's currently happening. I'm willing to accept bots as another creature. They just happen to be computers. So I'm happy with having a bot create a proposed change and then a human reviews it. And now you have two things reviewing something, presuming that with the exception, which I'm not sure it's worth trying, with the exception if the person who created the bot is also the reviewer. I think that's the one case where that's a little more dubious. But if a bot creates something and then it's reviewed, well, presumably the bot thought it was a right thing to do based on its code, and then a human reviewed that particular change and also thought it was good. And so I think that has some value. What worries me, I'm actually fine with penalizing different for bots versus human commits proposals. What worries me more is the well-known bots not being penalized. I guess we're kind of assuming that certain bots never make mistakes. Boy, that's kind of not been my experience, including Dependabot.
Can we segment the two concepts in the notes?
Yeah.
Because I feel like
Okay.
because like on one point, it's how do we handle single contributor projects?
Right.
How do we handle that? And then on the other point is the one that you were just addressing there.
Yeah. I think, all right, so let's separate it out, number of contributors, or I'm sorry, number of maintainers versus is something reviewed. That's what you're proposing, Spencer, is the two TZs apart? Am I understanding you correctly?
I think that's what Eddie was proposing. I was going to talk about something else.
Oh, okay. All right. That sounds like a good tease apart. So let's talk about commit review. I am fine with saying if a bot or another human creates something, that's one thing, be it a human or not human, that's created a proposed change. And now you have a second person reviewing the change to see whether or not it's actually the right thing. So you've got at least two somethings, somebody originally proposed and somebody else reviewed it. That doesn't strike me as crazy. Now, I do think that having multiple people multiple maintainers is vital, if for no other reason than if the first maintainer dies, what happens?
Well, yeah. So the thing is, like, this is a really, really good check because best practices state that you have multiple people working on any project, right?
Yeah, and that's really, really hard on NPM is odd, for example.
So would it be worth maybe to, if in the code review check, what if we looked at, say, 100 commits and we look at how many people have merged or committed or merged the commit? And then if we have a single person, we say it's very highly likely that it's a single maintainer repository and there's no code review. Like, can we differentiate based on who commits? Like, I guess maybe single maintainer we can actually infer, because if we look at enough commits, we know that it's the same person reviewing or the same person merging. And if we differentiate that, we make sure that that person is a human. We know that it's like, can we do something like this one?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is there some kind of, I haven't looked at exactly how it gets installed with All-Star, but a configuration file maybe to say who the maintainers are? Because if you do it that way, new maintainers would also be penalized. And it could be confusing for projects who want to increase their score to be able to do that on like a short-term basis.
I haven't checked, but can't obviously GitHub, for example, knows who has rights has permission to write directly to the repo, which is what I would call a maintainer. And at that point, is that's something that's publicly accessible, isn't? Who has permissions to write to the repo? No,
it's not.
No.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah, that stinks. Yeah, that's the problem. Okay, that's what we want. GitHub has it, but that doesn't mean. I mean, we might be able to convince GitHub to give us a number of how many maintainers there are. That would be a pitch to GitHub, but
nah, I don't think that would solve the problem that's at hand, though, because right, well, like what are we trying to score? We're trying to score the our code reviews happening in best practice way, right? That's
right.
That's the
well,
topic.
that's two of them. I think there's actually two different measurements. Are they getting reviewed, and how many maintainers there are? I think those are two separate points. So let's focus on the code review. So for the code review, we do get that information publicly. Basically somebody else, if somebody proposes it, somebody else has to then merge it, right? And we can certainly tell that publicly. I'm actually fine with having a lower penalty for a bot under the assumption that it's, although a bot could create malicious changes, it's somewhat less likely, maybe, if it's widely used. Yeah, there's the problem is, a bot can obviously create malicious code changes too.
Yeah. So I think that's what Raghav said. I'm also okay on penalizing less, just because there is a risk, but it's not as big as anyone pushing like a human doing it.
I think there's a lower risk for unintentional error. Bots can insert and propose malicious code just as well as a human can. But generally, you're only going to add a bot if you don't think it's going to be malicious. And typically, bots are only implementing things that are so mechanical that they're unlikely to get it wrong.
Right.
So I guess from that argument, I think they should be penalized less. I'm not sure there's no penalty. That's the only thing I'm kind of dubious about.
Is this the normal approach to discussing features and changes for the scorecard? I just realized, like, I'm brand freaking new and I'm just jumping right in. I love how open you guys are to conversation, but this is also a little on the disorganized side. I'm just curious, like, what's the normal process for like changes and features and this type of conversation?
I think you're seeing it.
I think it depends like what the feature being proposed is. Like if something's scoped pretty well, then like it's just all in the issue. But if there's a lot of ways of tackling it, then it usually gets brought up in these meetings.
Cool. Just kind of brainstorming, I guess. Yeah.
Right. The problem was identified, but the solution is not so obvious.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
In this case, we kind of have like two issues that like are about the same problem. So yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't get introductions from the group here. So who, I know I've seen Laurent and Spencer as maintainers. Raghav, are you one of the code maintainers on Scorecard?
I'm not.
David?
I am not. However, I'm not one of the maintainers. On the other hand, I work for the Linux Foundation and I lead the best practices badge project, and the two projects are both, trying to figure out how well projects are doing things. So we want to try to coordinate things. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. I'm just trying to like figure out what's happening in this conversation. I just realized for a second, I was like, you know what? I'm lost.
Yeah. Basically, the issue here is when reviews happen, when changes are proposed, please, actually, I may as well summarize because maybe I'm getting this wrong. Sometimes they're by bots, sometimes they're by humans, sometimes they're reviewed, sometimes they're not. If somebody just automatically accepts a bot commit without a review, that seems like a risk, but much lower risk than if you just merged in arbitrary humans by review, without review.
Yeah, and also in particular, we don't want to discourage people from using auto merge in Dependabot because that's a useful feature. And most of us who LGTM Dependabot or RenovateBot PRs, we actually don't even really review them, right? We skim through them. And sometimes maybe probably just say yes. So
yeah, I will say that when I use Dependabot on my GitHub projects, but I do review the proposed changes, and I don't always accept them. I do find that just because Dependabot says you should do something, yes, technically it passes, but it doesn't understand the full context. So I do think that there should be a penalty.
Well, it's a different type of risk, right? You've got a completely different type of risk from auto merging the latest update.
That's right. That's right. So I'm actually agreeing with the lower penalty for an unreviewed bot commit. I'm just a little hesitant about the no penalty for unreviewed bot commits.
I'm not really clear on, so I understand that you'd want to not have a bot counted as a contributor if you're for the case where someone's committing to main, but otherwise I see bots as sometimes they're worse, sometimes they have better contributions than humans. So what's the point of, other than that one edge case of someone committing to main and not having any other contributors?
I think that's exactly what this is. For the first one is, what do we do when commits are made without a review, right? And then there's the discussion of like, okay, well, if it's a human committing without review, definitely penalize it. Now what if it's a bot committing without review?
Oh,
No penalty, low penalty, same penalty.
Yeah, I think it should not be same penalty, simply because typically bots are implemented on things that are mechanical and they're less likely to be wrong. They can be wrong, so I think a penalty is appropriate, but a lesser penalty also seems appropriate. Again, lower risk, not no risk, therefore lower penalty, not no penalty.
Yeah. Also,
That's
I think
why
also
I'm currently leaning towards.
yeah, me too. I'm leaning towards lower risk, and also because if you're a single maintainer, maybe some maintainers just want to say just auto merge. I don't have the time to review all this. And if they do this, and we say you're not like you, like we don't want to. I don't think we want to discourage them from doing this. Even though if they are a single maintainer, they wouldn't pass. They shouldn't pass code review. So
Yeah,
but anyway,
in case of like single maintainers, I think code review wouldn't like, we would focus less on like penalizing them, and probably the code review check would take more of an approach of saying there's just like not enough review data because there aren't like any like yeah, there isn't like human review activity to make a decision about whether this project is like subject to human scrutiny with review or not.
so in that case, do they get 0 or do they get 100? Because
I think in the default case, we would like start everyone off at 10 and kind of like give these penalties instead of being proportional. But in the single maintainer case, I think we would like Scorecard also has like this like insufficient data result, I believe. So we would like say something like that, like there's not enough data to give a score or not.
yeah.
That's one possibility. We could also just say 0. Like I'm not sure which one of those is better option actually. So
Yeah, and there is actually the case where somebody does their own analysis using a token that actually can get GitHub access and see the underlying data. But
I'm not. You mean whether the person is a maintainer?
yeah, if a maintainer runs this code and gives it a token, the tool could actually determine the answer.
I think if it's a pat token, yes, but I don't think the GitHub token from the workflow can do it today.
Won't give us that access.
Yeah, and so they have this difference between but that said, now that they have a granular pat token, maybe that's one way that people could use it. But still, on the other hand, if you're on your own repository, you already know what you do, right? So I think that data is more useful to consumers than it is for maintainers. So maybe that wouldn't actually resolve the issue. If that makes sense.
So my brain is limited. I can only really handle one thing at a time. So if code is just getting accepted from the outside without any review, I like the, I guess, proposal 1. If human commits are getting viewed by somebody else, big penalty. If bot commits are being accepted without review, i.e. the bot is just editing it directly, that's a smaller penalty. 3 and 7 seem perfectly reasonable to me. I like that proposal number 1. I'm a little worried about number 2. But is this just me, or do other people think that makes sense, or what?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah, that's all right with me. I'm like a little you know, like every time like a change is made to scoring, we'll like get some like level of feedback on whether that makes sense or doesn't make sense based on like people's workflows. So like I'm okay with like maybe we should like do proposal 1 and like yeah, wait for more feedback or whatever before we do proposal 2.
Yeah, and so do
One
we
thing
think
that
we
I
should
like-
also? Oh, go ahead, Spence.
Oh, just one thing that I like that Scott has been doing in some of his changes with security policy and license checks is that he had a list of, say, 400 projects and was able to test, I guess, his scoring change that he was proposing and get an idea of how on these 400 projects it would affect scores before the change was made. So preemptively get some sort of quantitative data without waiting for people to come to us saying, why did my score go down?
Okay, who was doing this? I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name.
Scott, last name's like Heiseman or something like that, from Software Engineering Institute.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, he's not here on the call, but I know him. Okay, was running, I guess, draft scorecard code.
Yeah, like he was just running his branch against 400 repos and sort of getting regression testing, I guess, of how the score changes.
Yeah, what he's done has been really, really nice because you could immediately say whether what he's proposing would be a terrible idea or not.
You know what? All right. I like that idea. I think we should ask Scott to do that. Here's a crazy thought. Is this something maybe we should put in the Scorecards CI pipeline so that we can see the changes, how scores change based on changes to code? Is that a little heavy? Basically, could we just integrate that into our CI pipeline?
It would still require an opinion.
Well, yes, it would give answers, however, in order to help make that opinion.
It
Yeah,
might be hard.
Yeah, having it in the CI pipeline, it sounds like it might affect like token usage. So
Yes.
we might have to like think about how this would affect like the other like data pipelines that, like, for example, a cron infrastructure I think uses this would probably use like the same tokens as
Yeah, fair point.
Are
Okay.
they separate pools? I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, Matt,
So that's a good
we
reason not to.
We can at least encourage reviewers when there's like a scoring change in a pull request to ask for that data when possible. I think Scott is the only one who has done that great work until now. So
Okay. Let me update my proposal then. Maybe we can document how to do that so that once there's a pull request, somebody can run. You know, here's the canonical list of 400 we typically use, and or how to do that.
What was the reason for not automating it? I don't think I could.
Too many tokens getting used. We already suck up lots of tokens.
yeah, although I think a lot of our pre-submit tests now run with the ephemeral GitHub token, and only the branch protection one runs with the PAT. So it might not be as bad as we think, Raghav, because I think but still I don't know how many. I forgot how many API calls we can make with the GitHub token, the ephemeral one.
Right.
Are you using a literal personal access token in your CI?
For
We
parts
have
of it.
one. We have one for the branch protection. Because branch protection doesn't work without this, without a path token, unfortunately.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think we seem like, it seems like maybe proposal one is like a good thing to maybe like put on one of these issues, just like as a summary of like what the decided, like, or like the approach that people seem to like. So I can like put a comment on this issue about proposal one. And then for this other thing of like having all reports in like having scoring reported whenever you create a PR that affects scoring, I think this would be good. Also, like create like a separate issue to track.
Yeah, and we could start by just asking Scott to see if we can get him to document what he's doing, and maybe creating a standard list, because I think it would be that would make sense. And since he's already doing that, maybe we can get him to give us a hand.
Yes.
So for proposal number one, would it be also good to try to get some statistics on how many out of the 30 commits that we get, how many are typically from a bot and not a bot, or at least have a distribution for single maintainers, because then we could tell what's like the minimum number of commits that we should be looking at. Otherwise the score is going to go up and down. When you hit pull request, like say when you only hit bot pull requests, like you're gonna have a different score depending on what pull request you get, like from a bot or not a bot. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. I don't know it's necessarily bad if it kind of goes up and down a little bit. I mean, frankly, that happens anyway with scorecards. You add pin dependencies and suddenly your scorecard changes, and we certainly don't worry about that.
We don't want it to go up when it shouldn't go up. Going
when it should go up.
briefly.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But that will happen anyway, right? If let's say, for example, you have one direct commit to the main branch from a human, and then you have 6 from depender bots that are not reviewed, then you're going to get a certain score. And if the other time you have one external contributor has a commit that is a PR that is reviewed as a human, and then the same as depender bot, then it's going to go up and down. Right? It will go up.
But you look more than just a couple. What's the number now? Number commits you look backwards on?
Yeah, that's the problem. We look at 30, but the commits that we look at might be part of the same pull request, and that's an existing issue we have to fix. So we need to decide how many pull requests we should be looking at. Raghav, please correct me, or Spencer.
That's correct. Yeah, particularly in case, so if you don't squash your PRs, then they kind of like a PR with like a bunch of changes, like a lot of back and forth will appear as like 30 commits or whatever, and it could, or like 50 commits, and we might not even get all of them. So we might only have like one PR to look at over the history of the like
okay
within the scope of commits.
Okay, and that's just an artifact of how you're counting the commits backwards.
Where is the code for because I'm looking at the codereview.go raw. I'm looking at raw code review. But I'm not up to speed on this check yet. So I'm trying to figure out if there's separate checks for like I don't even know what my question is. I'm sorry, you guys. Is there separate checks for the to make sure that code has been reviewed? Like, because it seems like there's 2 goals here. I'm trying to make sure that there's actually 2 checks for these goals.
Yeah, we have a branch protection check, which is kind of similar, which says, is code review required for merge? And code review is more of like a historical check, like what has actually happened in the history of the project. Has code been reviewed that has gone into the default branch. So the branch protection is like, what is the access policy or like standard for like committing?
Okay. Because it seems like checking pull requests to make sure it's like, hey, if this is a dependent bot pull request, we just ignore it. We're not going to score you based on your dependent bot. Like, you're not going to be scored well based on your dependent bot merges in. Then we look at all the other pull requests, and if it's like self-reviewed, then that would accomplish everything. It's like, hey, we look at all pull requests except for the one from bots. And then from those pull requests that we're looking at, how many we just do deductions based on the ones that are self-reviewed. Maybe this is more obvious in my mind than what I'm communicating out loud.
So
Yeah, I think what you're saying would all be part of the evaluation part of that check. The raw would just like scrape GitHub, and then we have like a separate thing called evaluation/code review that does what you're describing, like as logic, it implements that. Yeah.
Okay, I'll look at that.
I mean, maybe, and here's the challenge, maybe what you really want to do is figure out what the main line versus the merged branches are and track 30 back on the main branch.
that's what we do, but based on how we pull the commits, it's look at whatever the default branch is and pull 30 commits from that, but you still run into the unsquashed issue.
Oh, right. Got it. I mean, which is of course, it's not technically wrong. It really is 30 commits, not squashed. It's just fast forwarded. But
Right.
So I have a more high level question. Like I think someone brought up the branch protection. I think Raghav, you did.
Yep.
So why don't we use the branch protection settings more in the code review to say that you are doing code reviews? I mean, I guess sometimes it's using different review bots, like what is it, Gerrit. But I wonder whether then for Gerrit and these other ones, we actually try to count commits. And in that sense, I think that there is no problem of squash and non-squash because it's not pull request, I think. Or maybe there's pull request, and maybe that would allow us to be more precise on GitHub for GitHub reviews, where we say we know you are doing reviews because the branch protection setting says so. And I know it can be changed, but like it depends if we say that like maintainers are adversarial or they're just they're not trying to game the system or not. Because like if they just don't change it all the time, that gives us a strong signal that we could maybe then validate with the code review to make sure it's not violated. But maybe put more trust in the branch protection setting. I'm just asking.
Yeah, in my mind, and this is like a little bit separate from this issue, but like branch protection, like philosophically, branch protection is like point in time, and code review is historical, which is like branch protection could be up, like you could turn on branch protection 30 seconds before running scorecard, and scorecard would give you like full points, whereas code review is like a historical thing of all the commits in a project. And then like the other part of what you said, which is like can we look at like other review platforms? We do look at other review platforms, but we apply much less scrutiny just because we don't have like all the code to handle what would like an approval look like. Although we definitely should handle things like Fabricator and Gerrit, but right now we just kind of say like all those commits from other platforms are kind of like like don't need review, so like we just like score them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to see of what how the results are consumed. So if I'm just trying to understand how my dependencies behave, I almost feel like branch protection is kind of a signal that is, it can be gamed, but it gives me an idea of who is doing code reviews and who is not. And then there's the other part where, oh, I'm taking the view of there's an insider attacks, like red team exercise, and I want to catch it through, attestations like Salsa does for, source requirement. And that seems to be maybe something different. And it looks almost like we're trying to tackle both. We're trying to, like the code review check right now is kind of trying to say, I'm verifying that I can give you an attestation. And that's useful for the maintainers themselves when they want to deploy something as part of Salsa. But I think for the consumers, like say Google, I don't know, Microsoft, ingesting dependencies, then maybe the branch protection is what they care more about than like the individual commit. They're more looking like at the practice as a trend, I guess.
I think I can make a decent case for what's being done right now. The branch protection is a signal that, hey, we have an intent to, from here on, do reviews, get some credit. But you know what? Oftentimes the best way to figure out what's likely to happen in the future is to see what's been happening in the past. If somebody, turns on and off branch protection every time they want to do something, that's kind of lame. Watching what they actually do has some value.
What if we do it? What if we do all commits from a certain date? So like all commits since 7 days ago, something like that.
I think you want more than 7 days, but I get it. Maybe you want both, at least X number and at least this date. I'm not sure that we can actually do that in a simple query, but.
I think Spencer has looked at a little bit how to do queries. I think right now we just say 30 commits because GraphQL gives us an easy way to express this. But I don't know. Spencer, have you seen if we can give a timeline, like since X hours or something?
Yeah. There's sort of like two answers to this. I'm sure there's an expression we could use in GraphQL to sort of get that. And 30 commits was picked, before I started looking at the code, but it's nice to have one query that we submit ahead of time, because the weekly cron job that runs this on 1.2 million repos is trying to minimize the amount of API calls.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for someone running on like a CLI or something, it's entirely possible. I don't know explicitly if it supports give me every commit in the last X days. I wouldn't be surprised if it does. And it's possible to keep listing that sort of thing. We just have to be careful also now that we have one external contributor working on GitLab support. This functionality that we're wanting for is a generic way, and right now the interface is list commits, I think, and it just returns commits. So just something to keep in mind.
Yes. I do know that in SQL you can say, after this date and limit up, up to this number. You can have limit statements. I would imagine that GraphQL has the same. That said, I don't know what GitLab does. It wouldn't, they may just have a simple paged interface, in which case you can just page backwards until you reach a date or either a date or the limit number. If we have to do it paged, that's obviously less efficient. But maybe that'll be compensated for with the fewer number of projects we have to read. So that may actually work out just fine. Does GitLab, what does GitLab have for the interface? I have not actually worked with their data query.
I'm not really familiar with how it's being implemented.
Okay.
Just on the scorecard.
I just did the quick lookup on GitLab queries, and I immediately suddenly find out about SQL query guidelines. So there may be a SQL interface. I don't know. This is definitely not a thing to figure out right now, but if they support SQL, then they for sure have a limit statement, and you can do a query and limit the max number. So it may be okay.
Could any of this be achieved by just looking at the Git log? Or what of this could not be achieved by looking at the Git log?
You certainly can. I mean, you get the same data with GitLog for sure.
Because that's vendor agnostic.
It is. It is also quite a bit of yank down. For some of these for some of these projects, if you do a Git clone, it's a non-trivial amount of data that you're pulling. And I've done this, so I've done. And yes, I know you can do that with Git directly.
Yeah, we do look at the Git log, but in the case of GitHub PRs, the way that we fetch a PR, the PR that's associated with a Git commit is by like using the commit object. So it has like it like points each commit to a associated PR. And other review platforms do something different. Like they put like for example, Fabricator has like the differential revision in the commit, like the commit message itself. So it's like a little bit easier there to like correlate. But with GitHub, we use we have one API call for like the log and like another, and like part of the GraphQL is like to get the associated PR.
If the only problem is the size of the transactions, a bare clone could just pull the history and then you can work with it. The Git history, the Git log. I don't want to be too skeptical and propose a massive change to the entire underlying code base here, but it seems like you could accomplish a lot if you were just working with the Git history, and a bare clone would let you do that.
Well, and there's nothing that doesn't say that we can't implement things in one way with GitHub and a different way with something else. Because there's certainly a number of, a number of different systems out there.
Yeah. We have like a little bit more than 5 minutes left. So I just wanted to ask if people want to talk about something else or have any other like topics that they.
If I manage to get a PR up with changing some of the checks to just look at the Git log instead, is that something you guys would welcome reviewing?
So there's an issue that has a suggestion already. I'm trying to find it, but I can ping it out when I find it.
That'll be helpful.
Are you saying like change code review to just look at the Git log?
Just to use Git log data in general. I forget which check it was the issue was raised with.
Well, that would eliminate the whole trying to limit it necessarily to 30. I mean, you could easily say, I'm going to go back a year, say.
Good. I think you'd have a different set of problems there on like, hey, you can never increase your score. But yeah, you'd dramatically increase your.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you can increase your score. You're gonna have to show us over a year that you're gonna do it, and throughout the year, as you do it, your score will slowly increase.
that would be true.
Now, but before you laugh too hard, I think I can make a counter. Basically, you want to get credit, show over a period of time that you do the work.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of it from the context of the security slam that we did last month. Like, nobody would get to 100% then. That'd be a pain. That'd be a pain.
Start early. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, right?
Well, first task, find out if this actually works. So yeah, drop me out the issue if you find it. Otherwise, I'll I'm about to have a baby, so I mean, this could be all moot. I might just not do it, but I'll put up a PR with a subset. I'll try to keep it small, if we can prove the viability.
Yeah. Congrats, first of all.
Yeah, congrats. We're not going to be able to compete with that.
Yeah, there's like I think there's like a switch of commit based versus file based checks within the code base. So that might be like a interesting thing to look at. It like classifies checks by the kind of data that they need to work.
Yeah. And again,
Where is that like you're talking about a switch inside of Scorecard, right?
Yeah, within Scorecard, there's like a flag per check that says whether it's like.
Oh,
yeah, I'd have to stop sharing to pull it up, but
got it. I'll keep an eye out for it.
yeah. Cool. And thanks, Spencer, for posting the link in the notes.
I'm pretty sure that's the one, but I'll have to read through it more to double check.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Is there anything else that anyone wants to talk about?
I think we're out of time anyway.
All right. Well, we'll check. Thanks everyone for the discussion, and we'll see you all in, I believe, 2 weeks. Is that our second to last meeting of the year? On the 1st. So yeah.
It will
And then we
probably be
have
the
one-
last, right?
We have one more on the 15th on the calendar, but I'm not sure if that's like legitimate.
It's up to this group. You can meet on Christmas if you want to. I won't be there.
I'd love that.
Well,
right.
not have me there. Yeah, I got it.
Well, thanks, guys. It was a pleasure. I'm gonna
Yes.
drop. Take care,
Thank
y'all.
you. And thank you for the new folks. Welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.